Hi, welcome to Monster Transmissions. Today we're going to go over how to install a torque converter on a 4R100 E4OD type transmission. That's a Ford overdrive, really big transmission with an even bigger torque converter. So there's a procedure to install the converter, and it's very important to know and follow these steps on how to install a converter on these transmissions. So we have a factory style converter right here. Most of the diesel applications have a 6-lug converter, and that's what we have here. It's a factory style, and the things you need to look for or be cautious of is there's several areas that the converter lines up and stays true when it's spinning on the engine. So the actual rear hub rides in the actual crank part of the engine. So you want to make sure that there's no cardboard from the box or any paint debris on here before you install it. The next area is there's 2 sets of splines in the converter. Okay, there's a set of splines all the way in the back, and that's for the actual input shaft. The input shaft of the transmission, this shaft will slide and go all the way into the back of the converter. The next set of splines is the actual pump stator. So these are the splines that will line up and fit into the converter itself. So this is the actual, this half of the pump obviously be in the transmission, and this is the stator sliding in. That's how it will line up, but there's a critical area that you need to watch for, and that is this area of the converter. It's hard to see in the camera, but there's 2 flat lands here, 2 flat areas. And that actually is designed to fit, this is the pump gear. And you notice that there's 2 flat land areas on the actual gear. So when you're installing this converter, it fits very tight and it will fit on there. To assist this, the factory actually beveled the inside of this gear, so it'd be much easier for it to find and line up to fit on to the converter. Before you install the converter, we're going to put some transmission fluid. This will hold at least 2 quarts of fluid before you install it on the transmission. It'll be heavier, but it also won't be a dry start. This thing, because what happens is you fill your transmission, it will take the fluid from the pan, suck it through the filter, and then fill the converter first. So to assist with that, we're going to fill the converter with at least a couple quarts of fluid, and that will soak the clutch that's in there. It's the lockup clutch. It'll also not have a dry start when you go to start this. The other thing that we're going to do to assist the install is we're going to put some trans gel right at the very beginning of the converter. This will assist you to line this gear up. You want to put some trans gel on this. There's a Teflon ring on the front of the pump stator. This ring, you want to put some trans gel there because you want to cut or chafe that, because if it's cut, then the converter will not go into lockup. So now that we have fluid in the converter and the hub has been greased, we're now going to lift the converter up and we're going to set it on the front of the transmission. And the first area, the first clunk, when you install it in, that will be the actual stator lining up with the other stator. And you're going to rotate it clockwise until it lines up with the spline for the input shaft as well as the gear and the pump assembly. So you will apply pressure inward as well as rotate the converter clockwise until it lines up all those splines as well as lining up with the pump gear. And you can check the clearance. You will not be able to get your fingers between the actual converter and the front pump half of the transmission. It's all the way in. And what can happen is, as you're installing this in your vehicle, especially in 4x4 applications, when you go to place this against, there are 2 areas on the case that will allow you to line up, and then this will set right up against the actual engine itself. Once you have the converter all the way in, transmissions have these little caps, the converter does, to protect the threads until this point. So before you get this up, these studs have to go through the flex plate in order to line up. So you have to remove all 6 of these caps. Then as you are getting this closer to the engine, you want to ensure that these studs are lined up with the holes on the flex plate. And I would start bolts on either side of the case And as you tighten them, don't tighten one side completely and then pull the other side around. You'll snap the case, especially if it's not lined up. So you want to start both sides and tighten left, right, tighten these bolts up. And as it's being pulled forward, you should be able to wobble the converter between the hole on the flex plate. That ensures that this is not locked up and is wedged. If you cannot move the converter as you tighten this up, then something's not aligned. Either the converter came forward and is on top of the pump gear, or it is tight on this side and too loose on this side and is twisted, and you will not be able to line up straight. That's why it's important to tighten both sides. So to get the converter installed, install all the way on the transmission, put it up in there. As you tighten it, ensure that this comes through the holes on the flex plate, and that as you tighten it, you can continuously move this left and right, okay, and it's not binding or pinched. If it is, stop immediately and loosen those bolts up. If you loosen the bolts and this moves, that means it's uneven, and you will damage the pump and the converter if you install it with this not aligned. So if you have any other questions about torque converters, transmissions, transfer cases, or parts, you feel free to give us a call here at Monster. Our phone number is 1-800-708-0087, and we'll talk to you then.